Loans, today's rates, FHA, VA, and more. Call the Get Mortgage Fit Show Thursday afternoons from 1 to 2 on WNN at 800-827-RATE. 800-827-RATE or visit them online at newamericanfunding.com. NMLS 6606.
1470 AM and 95.3 FM. The Health and Wealth Radio Network.
Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Tuesdays at 5 p.m.
Talk 1470 AM and 95.3 FM WNN. Talk 1470 is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton. The Health and Wealth Radio Network.
It takes a whole lot more effort to get something started in your life than it does to keep it moving.
Del Walmsley has moved thousands of radio listeners closer to a great life. The Del Walmsley Show is now on in South Florida on Talk 1470, Monday at 5, Tuesday through Friday at noon. Listen and move towards your great life today.
What you want to know. What you need to know.
Talk 1470 WNN.
We first opened about 10 years ago. We were small, just a few of us, but it was exciting. I always dreamt of having my own business. It was kind of slow at first, but things started picking up. We had big plans, but in our wildest dreams, we never thought we'd have this much work. Yeah, with so many businesses caught off guard by the storm, Reed Waste Management has never been busier.
What will become of your business after a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now, before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
I'm working 2 jobs, and my husband works too. My kids go to school with your kids. I sit next to you at PTA meetings. We live right next door. We've been neighbors for years. You know my family and me pretty well, but here's one thing you don't know. I'm 1 out of every 6 Americans, and my family is struggling with hunger. Like you, we believe in this country. What's hard to believe is in the land of milk and honey, how many hardworking Americans have to choose between paying bills and feeding their families. This is a problem with a solution. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 7 meals for those around you quietly struggling with hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I was visiting my 75-year-old aunt the other day when her phone rang.
Hello? It's you again.
She seemed nervous.
Well, I don't think I need any more life insurance.
The caller was doing a great job keeping my aunt on the line.
Okay, so you need my credit card number?
My aunt went to get her purse, so I decided that I would ask a few questions. Well, as soon as I introduced myself, the caller hung up.
McGruff, the crime dog here. Recognizing the signs of fraud can be difficult for older people. Often they're very trusting and consider it impolite to hang up. The National Crime Prevention Council wants to educate seniors so that these scams can be reported to local law enforcement agencies.
Financial fraud could include identity theft, fake check and wire transfer scams, investment and credit card fraud, and online charitable solicitations. Unfortunately, only 1 in 5 of these crimes are reported. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
The opinions expressed in the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show, the place to fine-tune your swing, dress for the course, club, or cruise, and get tips on the best places to play and stay at the right price. Vacation or staycation, host Dan Shub, along with his expert co-hosts and guests, will tell you where to go. To play golf and vacation, that is. Now, here's Dan.
Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show. I'm your host, Dan Schub, and tonight, like we typically do, we're going to talk a little bit of golf. We're going to talk some travel, and in just a few short moments, we're going to be chatting with our guest, and he is the founder and the CEO of a website called ShowScore. That's show-score.com, and it is a really cool site. By the way, his name is Tom Melcher. And it's the site it's kind of like a Rotten Tomatoes for what they have for movies, where you can go on there and rate movies. But this is for Broadway shows and other kinds of shows, predominantly in New York. But then he also takes it one step further and facilitates you to get some tickets at all different price levels, perhaps some nice discounts, as well as some other packages that are quite cool. So he's been doing it for a couple of years, and it's really starting to take off, and I thought it would be great to inform all of you folks, if you like to travel to New York City like I do and partake in some of the wonderful opportunities in the Broadway area, then this is for you, so you'll want to hear about that. And, of course, later on in the show, I've got some of Dan's deals on travel for you. As always, some that are pretty nearby and then some that are on the other side of the world, so you're not going to want to miss out on that. But without further ado, we're going to talk a little bit of golf, which is what we like to do at the top of the show. And I did want to just very, very briefly recap last week on the PGA Tour, at least. Webb Simpson ran away with the Players, so congratulations to him. Other than the fact that they went very, very low, which for an event that's considered the fifth major, it's not officially a major, but they got to toughen that course up perhaps a little bit. Of course, not to take anything away from Mr. Simpson, who he had it wrapped up as far as I was concerned on Saturday. It got a little bit close on Sunday for a few moments, but I was never in doubt. But also I wanted to have a shout out to local Palm Beach County, Jupiter, I believe, resident Brooks Koepka, who had an albatross and tied the Tournament Players Club record up there at Ponte Vedra with a 9 under 63. And putting it in 2 on a par 5 is no easy thing. And Koepka hit a 6-iron from 208 yards and one bounce and in the cup for a 523-yard par 5 that he did that on. So congratulations to him as well. And also, as a result of the event last week, Dustin Johnson, who for 15 months was the world's number one golfer, as far as men go at least, was taken over by Justin Thomas. So congratulations to Justin Thomas for trading places, I guess, with Dustin Johnson. And, let's see how long he can hang on to that. Now, this week, there's a couple of interesting things going on. First of all, the other tours were silent last week. Everybody was letting the Players' Championship kind of take the limelight. But this week we've got the LPGA playing at Kings Mill, which is in the Virginia area, I believe. And Lexi Thompson, local Lexi Thompson, is going to be defending her championship. Also, the the Champions Tour is back in full swing with the Regions tradition. And I think that is the Greystone Golf and Country Club. I think that's in the Alabama area. And local guy, yet again, Bernhard Langer, is defending his championship there. So we'll have to see that. Of course, the PGA Tour event is the event that most of us take more notice of or spend more time watching, myself included. And it's kind of interesting this week. It's the AT&T Byron Nelson, which is just outside of downtown Dallas. And they moved to a new venue this year called the Trinity Forest Golf Club. And forest is a very interesting term. It's actually built on a landfill surrounded by a forest with nary a tree. It's wide open, link-style kind of golf. And the course, I mean, they may go low, so but it's going to be very interesting. Anytime they play a new golf course that's a little bit different or unusual, sometimes the players are going to complain a little bit, and sometimes they're going to go really low because these guys are very good. So on the first day of the golf course hosting the PGA Tour, Mark Leishman shoots a 61. So a 10 under 61, And then today, Friday, for those of you I always like to mention, if you're listening on Sunday, sorry, we're 2 days late, but you're 2 days late. We're not. Of course, our show reruns on WSBR, our sister station, 6 to 7 p.m. on Sundays. You can hear that on 740 a.m. or 96.9 or 103.9 FM, or just go get their app on your phone, just like here on WNN. You could download the app for free on the App Store for either WSBR for Sunday or Friday if you want to listen through the app. That's the easy way to do it wherever you are in the world. But anyway, Mark Leishman today was only half as good as he was yesterday. He was only 5 under today, so he's now, after 2 days, sitting at the lead at minus 15. So, I mean, how low can they go? Who knows? He's got a one-stroke lead over Aaron Wise, and there are several other players in striking distance. I mean, I don't know. I think I know the U.S. Open, if you can be under par at all, you're doing well. But some of these other tournaments, if it's going to start to be more than 20 under, and I know the players won't complain about any of this because they like to look really good, and they do. But some of these numbers are awfully low. Also, it was announced this in the past day or two, broken, I believe, by ESPN, that it seems that Stephen Curry from Golden State has been negotiating with the PGA to perhaps be a host of an event in the Napa area. So nothing is final yet, but we'll see what happens. And, you know, he's an avid golfer. He's played a couple of tour events. He's basically a scratch player, so he loves golf. Perhaps he loves golf more than basketball. He's obviously better at basketball than golf, but he's really good at golf too. And, you know, there's a long history of athletes or perhaps if you're not an athlete, you might have been an entertainer hosting events. Jackie Gleason, of course, is a perfect example right here in South Florida, but folks like Glenn Campbell and Dean Martin and Andy Williams and Bing Crosby and, of course, Bob Hope have all hosted tour events. Baseball player Joe Garagiola hosted the Tucson Open for a period of time. So, and Justin Timberlake, of course, for a while was hosting in Nashville too. So, or Las Vegas, I believe. I think he was hosting perhaps as well. So in any event, we'll see what happens with that. Here's an interesting story that originally was in the Zanesville Times Recorder. And this guy, he's been playing 7 decades of golf. 93-year-old fellow from Ohio by the name of Bob Bender. And he's getting a little bit too old to keep playing, and he was probably going to be playing his last round of golf before he decided to retire from golf. And he scored his first hole-in-one after 7 decades of out there trying, 152-yard third hole. And then his hip started to hurt him, so he played only a couple more holes, and then he had to retire before he could finish. But he said that, obviously he said the Lord knew. So he got his hole-in-one. He began playing when he was 28. At one point, his handicap was a 3. But a hole-in-one is not an easy thing to achieve, so congratulations to him. Also in the news, golf-related news, the LPGA Tour has announced that their first team event is going to be held in the Michigan area, Midland Country Club, and they're going to feature some foursomes and 4-ball event, and it's going to be 2-player teams. This is going to be in the middle of July. It's a similar format to the PGA Tour, the Zurich Classic in New Orleans, where they also have a team event with some different formats, so that's pretty cool. Briefly, you may have heard a little bit about Lucas Glover's wife getting arrested for domestic violence charges, so that was a little bit weird, but hey, golf wives are people too, and I guess they get weird sometimes, so hopefully that all gets sorted out without too much trouble. Just today, I heard that there was a gunman arrested after a shootout with police at Trump down at Doral. So right here in the Miami area, we've got folks going a little bit nutty on the golf course. He was shouting anti-Trump rhetoric. He draped a flag over a lobby counter, then exchanged fire with police officers. One official called it an ambush, and then he was arrested. One officer had a broken arm. The suspect was wounded by gunfire, and this is all, I mean, I knew that Doral was a tough golf course, and there was lots of trouble out there, I was talking about the deep rough and the bunkers. I did not realize that there's going to be gunfire out there. So be careful when you're out there. Golf is a dangerous sport. Also, in the news, here's another hole-in-one kind of a story. So this guy, Jeff Schultz of Darien, Connecticut, he was planning to propose to his fiancée out on the golf course. They were playing Baltimore Country Club's East Course, and he was going to do it on the 17th hole. That was his plan. But after she shot a hole-in-one on number 13, he decided that he would move it up a little bit sooner because I guess he was just so excited as she was. So on 14, he proposed, she accepted, and she said that she's probably never going to have a better day on the golf course than to shoot a hole-in-one and be proposed to both on the same round. So congratulations to them. If you're looking for a house in Islesworth, you may want to look into formerly Tiger Woods' house, most recently owned by Shaquille O'Neal. And didn't know he played that much golf, but it is, of course, Shaq-sized. Everything is Shaq-sized. There's even an area outside where there's a 95-foot long, 15-foot deep pool with a waterfall, hot tub, and a tiki-style cabana. And it is, I guess they call it Shaqapulco. This is one big house, and you could assume that it's probably got some tall ceilings and doorways as well. All you need is, right now, I guess they're asking $28 million for the Shaq abode. But it is 31,000 square feet of living space. And, of course, you do have a 6,000 square foot basketball court there as well. So that's in Islesworth. Last but not least, for golf news, Doug Ford, former Masters and PGA champion, passed away this past week at 95. I used to see him. He was like the head pro emeritus at a golf club in the Lake Worth area. And when I used to publish my magazine for Florida, I delivered it there. Every single month when I would deliver the magazine, he was taking a nap. He was enjoying being semi-retired, obviously, but he beat Sam Snead when he won the Masters, shot a 66 in the final round. So that was back in 1955. Hall of Famer, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. So condolences to the family of Doug Ford. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back. I've got some travel news for you, and then shortly thereafter we'll be talking to Tom Melcher, the founder and CEO of show-score.com. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned, and we'll be back with more of the Golf and Travel Show. And we are back. And if your business needs industrial workers, or if you're looking for work, you got to call Labor Finders. Labor Finders places for temporary or temporary to hire opportunities for skilled, semi-skilled, or general labor positions such as plumbers, electricians, concrete workers, forklift operators, drivers, landscapers, hospitality, office clerical, and much, much more. Labor Finders has almost 200 offices nationwide. Near here in Boca Raton, they have offices in Homestead, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and in Jupiter. So if you require legal insured workers, or if you're looking for work, call Labor Finders toll free at 800-864-7749. That's 800-864-7749, or visit laborfinders.com. And we are back, and I promised you that we're going to have some travel news for you, and just kind of like the golf news, we got a busy show today, so I'm going to go through it a little bit quickly because I just got a lot of stuff to talk about, so bear with me. I'm one of those fast-talking ex-New Yorkers. First of all, Las Vegas, place that we like to talk about here. And I get to go there quite often. There's a hotel that I've been meaning to get to, and I have yet the opportunity to stay there, usually because it's just a little bit beyond my budget, although it is probably the least expensive or one of the least expensive Mandarin Orientals in the world. Usually could get in there for about $250 or so a night, but there's always so many better deals that I don't typically stay there. But it is a beautiful place right there in the city center strip. But it will no longer be the Mandarin Oriental pretty soon because it is going to be rebranded in August, and it will from then on in be known as the Waldorf Astoria Las Vegas. So we spoke last week to the fine folks from Hilton, and that is part of the Hilton, under the Hilton flag, the Waldorf Astoria flag. And I'll be curious to see what kind of work they're going to be doing there as far as changing it, upgrading it. They're still going to keep their 23rd floor bar, which is a beautiful place. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking right now at a view from that bar out onto the strip, and it is gorgeous. They serve high tea there as well, and just a great place. So we'll see, keep you informed. Speaking of Las Vegas, business for the first quarter versus the first quarter the previous year has gone down. Of course, with the tragedy that they had out there, it was not something that they expected, but it has been down just a little bit. In 2016, the high, for the entire year was $42.9 million, and in 2017 it dropped to $42.2 million. So just down a little bit, but still kind of busy. So I'm glad to see it. It's good to know. All right, let's change gears a little bit. I'm going to pass over these stories because we're probably not going to have the time. But let's talk a little bit about the airlines. We always like to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. Oftentimes I'm flying, so I give you my first-hand information. My daughter, actually, she just flew off to Amsterdam and got delayed on the tarmac for 4 hours, missed her connection. It all kind of worked out. But the weather, not just here in South Florida, but throughout the country, has been really, really bad, and it is impacting. So that's sometimes you got to, even though she was leaving from Miami and the weather at that particular time was fine, they still got grounded. So, but other stories, a lot of times there's medical emergencies on a plane, and they make an announcement, is there a doctor on the plane who can help out? And just the other day on a Delta flight from Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta, it returned to the gate due to one of the passengers being sick, but the medical assistance was actually provided by our U.S. Surgeon General, who happened to have been on the flight. So that was pretty weird. Dr. Adams, what are the chances that, first of all, you're lucky enough that there is a doctor on board, but then he's the U.S. Surgeon General? I mean, that's just kind of weird. But in any event, he helped assist, and I believe the passenger was okay, so glad to hear that. In past months, we had spoken quite a bit about flying to Cuba, and all these airlines got on board with this and started scheduling all sorts of flights. And then after a few months, they found out that there were too many flights scheduled, and many of them got out of the business altogether of flying. However, one of the airlines that embraced it is actually adding more flights, and that would be JetBlue. So they've kind of become the leader, it seems, on flying from the U.S. to Cuba. So they're going to be adding some flights now between Boston and Cuba, as well as some other flights too. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of which, actually, there was an accident in Cuba today, right outside of Jose Marti Airport. And I'm sorry to say again, condolences to those who perished. Over 100 people passed away. This plane was it was a 737, which of course is the same kind of plane that recently had those issues with Southwest, losing part of their engine coming through the window. This was a Cuban airline that was flying it, that had leased it from a Mexican company. So the details are still coming about, so we'll see what happens. Last I heard, only about 3 people out of the 120 some odd people survived. So that was just horrible. There was another incident as well. A Sichuan airline in China made an emergency landing. Their windshield, without any reason, just broke, and one of the co-pilots almost got sucked out. They pulled him back in. So I've never heard of that before. This was an Airbus. This was not a Boeing 737. So this was, and the engine was not to blame, I don't believe. So I don't know why we're hearing more of these stories. I don't know if maintenance isn't what it used to be. I don't know if it's just because of social media and more people are, reporting this stuff. So we'll see. And speaking of more people reporting stuff, here's another story on an American Air flights this past week. I was flying from Philadelphia to Atlanta, and this was reported by Katie Genter of the website The Points Guy, which is a great website. You can Google it if you're looking to find out how to maximize your points on the different programs that are out there. But it seems that a gentleman was in first class, but his two friends were flying economy. And before the flight even took off, he was getting drinks, not only for himself, but for his two buddies, and trying to sneak them back into economy. And the flight attendants, of course, figured all this out, and they asked him to stop on multiple occasions. Eventually, they had to taxi back to the gate and have him removed from the plane. So a little lesson to be learned there, that if you're flying first class, the perks and the amenities are for you, not for your friends that are in economy, and the airlines don't they don't take too kindly to it, so you can get yourself thrown off. Speaking of American Airlines, they also this past week announced changes to their emotional support animal policy. We've heard a lot about that, how some people seem to be taking advantage of the policy. There seems to be a lot more animals, and perhaps there are more animals that are trained and more folks that are benefiting from this. But it seems like, perhaps some people are taking advantage of the policy as well. So they added some, animals to the list, that can't be, on an airplane, at least for a support animal. So such animals as insects are no longer, you can't have a support grasshopper, for instance. Hedgehogs, goats are not allowed any longer. It makes you wonder how many folks in the past were trying to come on with their emotional support goat or hedgehog or insect. So, I haven't heard of anybody complaining yet. I'm sure somebody's going to complain about this change, but somebody has to make rules, and I guess American is going to tighten things up a little bit. So, and that's okay. And speaking of airlines and flying, we've all been flying a lot lately, and we've all been enjoying some pretty good fares, especially overseas, sometimes here domestically. But what's been really weird is that the price of crude oil is up well over 50%, which highly impacts the cost of flying an airplane. And jet fuel is just a little less than 50%. So I guess due to competition, it seems that prices for flying have not gone up similar to the price of the fuel. So enjoy it while it lasts. Hopefully it will continue to last. But if it doesn't, don't be surprised, because eventually, for instance, we've spoken in the past about some airlines like Southwest. Oftentimes they buy on the futures market fuel when it's at a good price, so they can kind of sustain for a long time. But eventually that runs out, and when that does, prices may start to go up. And it only takes one or two airlines to do it, and then the rest kind of follow suit. So again, enjoy it while you can. A new airline out of France called French Bee, which is a discount carrier, is now flying to Papeete, French Polynesia. So you can now fly from Paris to San Francisco, from San Francisco to Tahiti, if you like. And it really is quite nominal, the cost. Paris to San Francisco is $189 and $330 in the low season to go from San Francisco to Papeete. So, I've never been to Tahiti, but it's certainly a place that I wanted to go to. Going via San Francisco is not such a terrible thing either. So if you're here in the States and you're not coming from Paris, you might want to make your way over to San Francisco and spend a couple of days over there. And then you can, go over to Tahiti. Why not, right? Also, the Department of Transportation, it seems, watched that 60 Minutes program like we all did about some of the maintenance issues at Allegiant, as well as some, I guess they're looking into American too now. So the DOT is auditing the FAA to make sure that they are doing the right thing as far as monitoring maintenance, and that's cool, so that we're all safe. We like to hear that. On the cruise lines, a story that came out this past week on a Carnival ship.